Thank you, Betsy. I have two readings this morning. One is from D.H. Lawrence, and the other is from the Ecumenical Institute Research Assembly in 1972. D.H. Lawrence. I put out my hand in the night one night, my hand touched that which was verily not me. Verily, it was not me. Where I had been was a sudden blaze, a sudden flaring blaze. So I put my hand out further, a little farther, and I felt that which was not I. Verily, it was not I. It was the unknown. Ha ha! I was a blaze leaping up. I was a tiger bursting into sunlight. I was greedy. I was mad for the unknown. I had risen, resurrected, starved from the tomb, starved from a life of devouring always myself. Now here I was, new, awakened, with my hand stretching out and touching the unknown, the real unknown, the unknown unknown. One of my favorites. It is out of the awareness that your whole life is one occasion after another of being overwhelmed by the mystery that you surrender utterly. You tried for conditional terms, but your terms were never honored. You become aware that the object of your affection is not your conditional terms, but only that which has rendered your terms impotent. With heart-sick pain, you declare that it is ultimate reality alone that you love. The eighth sermon in a series, which is entitled Fresh Perspectives, in which I'm trying to find a fresh standing point for responding to the key issues of the 21st century. And in some ways, the 21st century has been highlighting and focusing itself on these key issues right before our very eyes. And thus this series and the importance of finding a fresh way to stand is ever more important. Today's sermon is entitled Diversity and Being Hopelessly Enamored. In some ways, and we've had the conversation earlier today, the John Lewis memorial service was all that could be said. And not to try to re-say that. And not to try to unsay that either. What was said there was critically important. But I want to come at this in a slightly different way. I told Rod I was going to mention him, and now here it is, Rod. Rod and Lenore and I have had some interesting conversations on Wednesday afternoon, trying to figure out how to talk seriously about depth life issues in the 21st century without falling back into traps and misunderstandings of the 20th century that enable us to miss what's really going on in the 21st century. And I'd like to thank Rod and Lenora for keeping Rod on track, and Rod for pushing me to try to hone this down. Because the most important task that religious or non-religious but serious people have is to give new language, new expression, a new way to understand the deeper issues of life, not just the higgity-piggity, in 21st century context. So today, Thank you, Rod. So today, I want to try to focus on diversity. I was going to call this racism, but diversity is a larger category of which racism is one manifestation of that. And I want to try to look at what underlies that. What is the human depth, human propensity that undergirds the tendency to be racist? And I want to come at it, the simple statement is fear of the other. Simply put, nobody likes anything different than themselves. And otherness. Now the problem is, for every one of us, otherness is real. The world ain't all like me. And I cannot squeeze all the world into the box of meanness. The first recollection that I have of encountering otherness most directly would have been the spring of my 7th grade year in school. I was a safety patrol, one of those kids that went out and told the little kids when they could cross the street. And as I remember it, you could be a safety patrol starting in about the 6th grade. And there was a small group of us that had been safety patrols in the 6th grade and were coming through to the end of the 7th grade. And in the spring of the 7th grade, we were thinking about, were we going to continue to be a safety patrol in the 8th grade? And the really big question was, who was going to be the captain of the safety patrols in the 8th grade? And there was an ongoing debate among many of us, some of us. And but it was a big life question, and certainly for me. And I thought I was in the running. And I'll never forget one day, I was walking back from my post as a safety patrol along with Jane Backstrom. Now, Jane had also been a safety patrol and probably was in the running for being captain. And she and I were debating. And we had concluded in a friendly conversation that it was down to 3 people, me, her, and David. And I opined that it was really between David and I because a woman couldn't be captain of the safety patrols. That was an unfortunate statement. And I will never forget, she hit me over the head with an umbrella. And for the first time in my life, otherness hit me on the head. And my opinion changed at that moment. That's kind of how otherness comes at you. It don't really give you, it hits you on the head. And ever since then, I've been highly self-conscious of otherness hitting me on the head in a myriad of kind of ways. And otherness comes at all of us all the time. Now, what I want to say, I'm working on a book. I got a copy somewhere here. It's called To All and Back. And what I'm trying to do in that is I'm trying to highlight the defense mechanisms that the self puts up against the encroachment of the otherness. Because all of us have a tendency to put up these walls, shields, because, frankly, otherness is scary. I'll come to that and some more in a minute. So there's 2 real big approaches, 2 walls that are the best shields against otherness. One I call emotionalism, and one I call liberalism. The emotionalism response to otherness is, Well, if I just be super nice to it, to otherness, if I could change my feelings, and if other would just feel nice about me, then I could do whatever I wanted to, and otherness could do whatever it wanted to. That's a cop-out. And the other, liberalism, is to come after otherness with good virtues. Well, let's hope for something better. Let's put aside the present and just hope. Or if everybody would just love each other, then we wouldn't have to worry about our differences. They would go away. No, they won't. So I don't want to belabor that point. And if you want to go back and listen to the sermon that I did a year and a half ago called Great Escapes, that's worth listening to. It's online. I'll send you a link. But what I want to say is life is full of otherness. And the more that you and I can learn to say yes to otherness, it's like that poem I read by D.H. Lawrence. I reached out a little bit farther, and I reached out a little bit farther, and I reached out a little bit farther, touching the unknown, verily the unknown, which was not I. To the extent that you and I can deal with the internal fortitude that allows us to say otherness is okay. Otherness, come at it. Otherness is otherness. Radical newness, new possibility is born to the extent that each of us are able to allow the radically different to coexist with our own deepest intentionality. It's not saying, well, I'll just become them. No, I'm not going to become that. I'm me, and you're you, and that's okay. I've had the fortune in my life of being able to experience otherness. It's hard to experience. Well, otherness comes everywhere. The fish in my pond are not me. I go to India, and I had the great opportunity I've been in India, I've been in Australia. One of the warnings I got when I went to Australia was somebody told me, be real careful in Australia, because everything's going to look the same, but it ain't. And that was more true than you thought. I'm not going to follow that line, but in India, I mean, everything in India is different. It smells different. It looks different. You get on the bus different. The people have different gestures. Nothing is the same on the surface. But then you find out the people who are acting differently, at the core, they know about being. They know about selflessness. They know about care and compassion. And they know how to work together. And they're willing to work together with people like me, even people like me, who look different and do things different. It's a growing experience. Now I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to try to talk. I want to try to get a hold of. I want to try to share the experience of moving fully into the otherness. What does it feel like? What are the kinds of times that I've moved in that you have, and think about, when have you gotten past the walls that protect you of sameness and let yourself fall in love with the mystery. Fall in love with the radically other. Fall in love with being itself, which is not you. That which is not you. Because until you have had that experience and been self-conscious of it, you can't deal authentically with things like racism, the confrontation, the deep pain that is there. My first encounter with racism, I had two. The first was, and I've told this story before, I'll tell it again. In 1960, my high school youth group, which was all white, went in a bus to Wadley, Alabama. And there were 18 of us. And we stopped to use the bathroom. And when we got out of the bus in Tennessee, there were 3 bathrooms. This was an event which has stuck with me. That was the first deep awareness that I had of something being utterly wrong in the social fabric of which I was a part. When I was a kid in the Baptist Sunday school, we sang the same song we're going to sing at the end. But then the words went, "In Christ there is no east or west, in him no south or north." And I thought that was a description of reality. And when I saw 3 bathrooms, I said, wait a minute, this ain't that reality. And somebody said, well, that's just a hope. I have since learned hope is a bad word. Hope doesn't help, it's not a strategy, as some people have said. And then a couple of years later, my high school youth group went to Detroit. Somebody had organized an interchange between East Lansing High School's youth group and some youth group in, I don't know, Michigan, in Detroit. A bunch of high school kids that were all black. And we all got together, we had a great time, and I was like, wait a minute, everybody's complaining about these bad people. What's the problem here? These kids are like us, we're having fun. We did what high school kids do. And that weekend was the weekend I decided I was going to become a minister. Because at that time, the church was the only group of people that I could see who, the white church anyway, was the only group of people that I could see that was doing anything to promote, build bridges across racial inequity. So that's when I decided to go into the ministry, and I've been working to deal with inequity, with the affront of the otherness ever since. It's not easy. I want to tell 2 times when I have felt myself most overwhelmed by otherness. And it's hard for a white person because most of the time we're the not other. And them over there, they're the other. In 1999, my boss sent me to India. That was a hard knock assignment, to see if our little company could figure out how to do business with companies in India. We were a computer consulting company, and I convinced him to pay my expenses in India for a week. Like I said, hard knock assignment. So I was there trying to explore in Bombay inroads to computer industry in Bombay. And my friend Vijay, who knows everybody, got me invited to the 3rd Bombay Internet Summit. And they thought, and they were all glad to have a white person come to there. And I went, I'm certain I was the only white person in the room. full of 100 Indians. And it took me about 10 seconds to realize that I was the dumbest guy in the room. And that my fundamental best strategy was shut up and smile. Most of the questions they were asking each other, I didn't understand the question, much less did I have an answer. And this was overwhelmedness by that which isn't me and which I have no way, I could see no way to contribute. Everybody was friendly, mildly, but I was overwhelmed. And my main strategy was to be polite, namaste. A second time was when my African-American friend Bob Powell Sr., who taught me sacred geometry, invited me to go with him to Morehouse College in Atlanta, and as a teaching assistant for a seminar that he was conducting on sacred geometry. Now, the good thing is that I did know the content of what he was going to present. That I knew. Most of the rest of the conversation in that room was about people, about experiences that I knew nothing about. They would make jokes about people, so-and-so from Jamaica, or so-and-so from the University of Timbuktu pre-Euclid. And they all knew who that was. I didn't have a clue. I was lonely. Yeah, I was left out. I was left out of the joke. I was left out of the importance of the magnitude of the time. Those are the kinds of feelings you get when you let yourself participate in experiences in which otherness is overwhelming. And say yes. Yes, I'm here. I'm glad to be here. I'm proud to be here. I'm me. And frankly, I don't understand. But hey, that's what life's about. It's a wonderful place. And I'm glad to be amongst friendly people that are glad to have me. Just don't ask me to be the chairman of this group, because I don't know what's going on. But that's okay. So then, when you're overwhelmed, and it's okay to be overwhelmed, the tendency is to say, well, I'm going to throw my weight around. No, don't throw your weight around. Don't try to take charge. Don't just do nothing. Be there. Be the presence. Say yes to being overwhelmed. It's okay. And then you can ask yourself, now what? Now you can begin to take in all the freshness, all the newness, all the new perspectives that are coming your way as a gift from people who aren't like you, but have full lives, who want to live, and who are willing to allow you to be in their presence. What a gift. What a gift. And slowly but surely, maybe you'll begin to find something that you too can contribute even in that situation when you're not in control. Truly, you're not in control. And finally, and the way this process goes is, what is the event? How do you feel? What do you begin to think? And what kind of resolve can you make to become stronger and to come back from having run into radical otherness? Well, first of all, you'll learn, hey, radically different situations than I'm normally used to are survivable. I'm still here. Woohoo! You can set fear and doubt aside. Because I tell you, when you do not know what's going on, it is extremely fearful. You have all kinds of self-doubt. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Or these other people just are not being polite to me because they're not telling me what the joke is. They don't have to tell you what the joke is. It was a joke that you did not understand. That's the way it is. So you begin to learn that you don't have to promote yourself all the time. You don't have to be the center of attention in every moment. You do have to be present in every moment, but the center of attention is not always you. And you can thrive amidst otherness. And then it's a great new day because diversity, what's the problem? Because otherness, what's the problem? Life is full of otherness. It's scary. It's not friendly. But that's okay. And I can live. And then I can contribute. So this is what I want to talk about as taking the journey, touching the comprehensive, touching all that is, touching the great mysteries of life, and then turning around and coming back. And on the back side of that, then you can make a real contribution to 21st century society. Because you're unafraid. You've seen the big whole picture. And you've had a chance to say all parts of today are capable of moving into tomorrow. So practically, the third part of all these sermons this year, the third part has to do with try to say, so practically, what's this mean for us in the 21st century, especially about diversity? How do we deal with diversity from the perspective of affirming otherness? Step number one. Let's all admit, we do not live in a white world, especially in the 21st century. We never actually did. That was an illusion. But for certain, in the 21st century, we do not live in a white world. Now, some of us are white. And if you look at the TV screen of who's watching this, there are more whites than not. But that's an illusion of the way the world is. There's problems with that too, but anyway. And the second thing we begin to understand then is that everybody has something to contribute to the shape of the future. Now, nobody has exactly to contribute what I have to contribute. That's a different question. But everybody has something to contribute, and part of my job and part of your job is to find what each person has to contribute and let them contribute that. Not everybody has to give a 20-minute sermon once a month. There's some people you just don't, that's not what you want them to do, I can assure you. But you don't want me playing the piano once a month either. I've said that before. Betsy and I agree. Now, second, therefore, we have to find practical ways, practical avenues, which allow differences to thrive. The tendency on the sameness side is to want everybody to have to do the same kind of thing. But some gifts that people have to contribute seem harder to weave into the social fabric. I've been in some conversations. Musicians are being especially hard hit today. They can't hold concerts. So what can you and I do to help musicians with stay alive, get paid? I'm really proud of this church. We have decided to add a special musician every month. And yeah, well, that ain't much money. It's not a lot of money, but it's a step in the right direction. And we should be applauded for that. And that's the kind of thing that we as a society and as individuals need to continue to do. The third, I'm big on structures. I've mentioned this every month, I know that. And that's okay, because what's happened, especially with the COVID-19 virus and the current political situation, which is trying to destroy structures, especially structures that got built up in the 20th century. And those structures did have problems. Let's not belittle that. The COVID-19 virus has shown the weakness of many of our structures. The answer is not throw away the structures. The answer is you and I have to figure out how to find among ourselves and among people who we elect to serve in office, people who can build structures that are comprehensive, especially structures that include the most vulnerable, the people who came into the 21st century with less capacity to participate in the ongoing activities of the 21st century. The next 2 years are really going to be different than the last 2 years. I do not think any of us know the wildness of opportunity we have. And people like you and I, who are able to affirm diversity, both in our public speech and in our personal actions, are going to have opportunities that we never imagined. And the ones of us who have resources to throw into this complexity, into this stew pot, this is the time to put your resources into building new approaches for the 21st century. And it's especially important for small groups of like-minded people who are willing to participate in this activity. And the way I know this little group is willing to participate in this activity is they show up on Sunday morning, which is a good sign. I have 4 practical recommendations, and I'll squeeze them into the last minutes I have. Let's find ways among ourselves to increase our experiences of otherness. Let's find ways among ourselves to self-consciously encounter that which is not in our own comfort zones. That's a little difficult in the time of social distancing, but it's not impossible. I don't know whether it means just reading books you've never thought about reading before, talking to people, whatever. And then let's, when we get together, instead of sharing just those times when we met people and had experiences that are the same experiences we've been having for 25 years, let's get together and share when we had experiences that made us self-conscious of the fact that we were encountering the radical other, and ask ourselves how it made us feel and what we did about it. And how does that give us clues to allow other people in our society who are scared to death by otherness. This COVID-19 virus is an opportunity for that, because COVID-19 is otherness. You can't see it unless you're I saw last night on TV, dogs seem to be able to smell it. That's an interesting thing, but I can't smell COVID-19. I can't see COVID-19. It is other than me, and it's not playing by my rules. But you and I can ask ourselves, how do we be creative and not let otherness overwhelm us, but not say no to the facticity of otherness? So let's experiment. Let's experiment. Just the willingness to do Zoom conversations, Zoom services like this, has pushed all of us. But we are getting better at this. We're learning how to tell jokes, how to smile, how to be inclusive. Let's experiment with how to have conversations more than just chatter. And next week we're going to try to do some art, some eventfulness. It'll be clumsy. With all due respect, Betsy Bye, it'll be clumsy. But it's a step in the right direction, because it's a way for us to say the other will not defeat us. We can live and thrive amidst otherness. And then the future depends on people like you and I being able to say to the people we meet in the street, in the stores, our friends and neighbors, even our brothers and sisters who think this whole thing is a hoax. This is not a hoax. We are in a time in which the future has opened a door that gives us an opportunity to move forward. And part of the key to sustaining ourselves is music. That's why I'm big on songs. I'm intrigued and point out my last point out is the hymn we're singing. I don't know. I'm looking over now at my TV monitor. How many of you, when you were little kids, sang the song, "In Christ there is no east or west, in him no south or north"? Huh? Well, some people did. Okay. If you notice in the UU hymnal, a lot of old songs have been rewritten. This is one of them. And the song we're going to sing about East and West, this is a vision, but let's not let it just sit as a vision. Let's work together to make East and West, all people, included. And we do that by not being afraid of the other. The other is our friend.